Be talking about the New York Giants. Now, keep in mind, right now it's July 12th. Camps haven't began. We're done with the draft. We're done with free agency. We're done with all the fun stuff, and we have to wait a couple more weeks until the NFL ramps up and they actually get into these training camps. But one thing I have noticed is if anybody's going to talk about the New York Giants, who keep in mind went 9-7-1 last season, and they won a playoff game against the Minnesota Vikings, who won 13 regular season games. If you're talking about the NFL, or more specifically, if you're like an NFL analyst or media member or whatever, and you're talking about the New York Giants, you're talking about one of two things right now. All right. Number one is going to be Daniel Jones and his contract. People are nitpicking it, saying that contract extension is ridiculous. It's not going to play out, blah, blah, blah. Number two is Saquon Barkley. Saquon and the Giants have yet to come up with an extension here. Could possibly, recent reports are saying it could possibly even stretch into the regular season, and Saquon could sit out for the first game of the regular season. So if you're talking Giants, you're talking one of two things, and they're both negative. Like I said, when I look at the Giants, I'm like, well, this is a team that wasn't supposed to win 9 games last year. They did it. They made the playoffs. And not only did they make the playoffs, but they beat the Minnesota Vikings in the first game of the playoffs. I get it. Minnesota, historically, not the most, franchise postseason success necessarily, but it's a huge win. The New York Giants last season had a good year. I'm actually seeing more stuff about Washington being a better team than New York right now. I'm like, well, New York had a solid offseason. They had a great draft. They had a solid free agency. They made some nice trades, getting guys like Darren Waller. That's what we're going to talk about in today's video. But before we do, if you guys enjoy it, be sure to hit that like button, hit that sub button for daily NFL content. Post a bunch of Giants videos. If you guys want more Giants content, let me know down below. But let's try and get this video to 250 likes. So I'm not even going to mention Saquon Barkley. I'm hopeful that Saquon Barkley is with the New York Giants to start off the regular season, and I'm just going to assume so for the sake of this video. Daniel Jones last season threw for over 3,200 yards, 15 touchdowns, 5 interceptions. The big number is 5 interceptions, but you could nitpick it. You'd be like, all right, well, he only threw for 200 yards per game. He only threw 15 touchdowns, blah, blah, blah. One other common nitpick I've been seeing with the Giants is threats on offense. So I wanted to take a deeper look into it. All right. Once again, last season, they won 9 games with their quarterback throwing for just 200 yards per game. It's more of a run-centric offense because you have a superstar stud in Saquon Barkley, who ran for over 1,300 yards last season, 4.5 yards per carry, double-digit rushing touchdown number. Saquon's a stud. We all know this. So when we take a look at the threats surrounding Daniel Jones last season, it was led by Darius Slayton, number 2 coming in Richie James, and then new guy, midseason acquisition, Isaiah Hodgins. We saw him specifically both times he went up against Minnesota. He feasted. But in the 8 games that Isaiah Hodgins played for the New York Giants last season, he averaged 44 receiving yards per game, which is a big deal because that's technically number 5 in average receiving yards per game for Giant receivers last year. Number 1 was Sterling Shepard, who only played 3 games. Number 2, Darius Slayton, the 724 receiving yards, the leading receiving wide receiver for the Giants. So my point is this: I look at the Giants depth chart, all right, and I see guys like Isaiah Hodgins, who I swear this guy's just ready to break out, and he was ready to break out last season. Once he came to New York, he pretty much just kind of got that started. Darius Slayton, consistent, reliable wide receiver. You also picked up a young speedster in Paris Campbell. He's 25 years old, so he's still young, but he's been in the league for a couple of seasons, so he has NFL experience. Paris Campbell, nice little X factor for your offense. Wan'Dale Robinson, also a nice X factor for your offense. These are 2 guys I'm pretty hopeful and I'm pretty confident actually that these guys are going to have an impact on this Giants roster next season. Now, maybe they won't both break out on stat sheet. Maybe neither one of them will break out on the stat sheet. I'm more excited about Wan'Dale Robinson because a healthy Wan'Dale Robinson, to me, is a huge threat for this Giants offense. He was drafted in the 2nd round in 2022 out of Kentucky for a reason. In his rookie season, just 227 receiving yards. Very excited. And I know Giants fans are extremely excited about him as well. When we keep in mind that he only played 6 games for the Giants last season, considering he caught 250 catches, it's like, all right, well, let's circle him and let's just keep an eye out on him. Giants fans have been and will continue to keep an eye out on Wan'Dale Robinson because like he's got the ability. There's no doubt about that. Just got to stay healthy. Jalin Hyatt, 3rd-round draft pick out of Tennessee. He's going to have an impact on this Giants offense next season. But one of the main reasons I want to make this video was because I read an article saying they were predicting every bust on every team, or one bust on every single team. And for the Giants, it was at the tight end position coming in at Mr. Darren Waller. And it was mainly because, all right, Darren can't stay healthy, right? There have been signs of decline in the past 2 seasons, but in 2019 and 2020, he had over back-to-back 1,000 receiving yard seasons. So in 2019 and 2020, he was arguably at worst, I mean, probably a top 7 tight end, but you could make an argument anywhere between, I mean, honestly, probably like 3 to 8. He was a top 10 tight end in the National Football League for 2 seasons. So you trade for Darren Waller. Now, my big thing is, if Darren Waller is healthy, he's going to be good. It's just as simple as that. If Darren Waller is healthy, he's going to be good. It just comes down to he's only played in 20 games in the last 2 seasons, so it kind of becomes a big what if, can he be healthy? Well, even if Darren Waller isn't healthy, which, by the way, the last time we saw fully healthy Darren Waller was in 2020, where he caught 1,200 receiving yards and 9 touchdowns and made a Pro Bowl. But Mr. Daniel Bellinger had a solid rookie season, and we started to see the chemistry build more in the last couple of games of the regular season with quarterback Daniel Jones. My point with Daniel Bellinger is he only played 12 games due to an injury last season. He caught 30 catches for 268 yards, 2 touchdowns. Daniel Bellinger is just an enticing tight end to have. And if you have a healthy Darren Waller, Daniel Bellinger is going to perfectly complement a healthy Darren Waller. And even worst case scenario, if Darren does deal with some injuries next season, you have a reliable tight end in Daniel Bellinger. You know, I was doing some deep dives when he was at San Diego State, where he went to college. In his senior year, he had a very similar year to his rookie season with the Giants. He caught like 350 total receiving yards. I was looking into the San Diego State team that year, and their starting quarterback only threw, or rather their starting quarterback and leading passing yard quarterback on the roster threw for 1,200 yards that season. So I think Daniel Bellinger, to me, is he's drafted in the 4th round for a reason. Like, this is just another enticing young cat that they have. When we take a look at the draft, just, you know, I know we've talked about the Giants draft time and time again, but I love a lot of these pieces, specifically on the offensive side of things. You got John Michael Schmitz out of Minnesota in the 2nd round, who's a day 1 center starter. You got Jalin Hyatt, who we mentioned, and then you have a nice running back in Eric Gray in the 5th round. 5 years from now, the discourse with Eric Gray being selected in the 5th round is going to be like, wow, I don't really know why he was selected that late. There's not really any flaws in Eric Gray's game. He can run the ball, he can catch the ball, he can block, he can do everything you want him to do. So he's a perfect complementary back, young complementary back to have behind Mr. Saquon Barkley. So, you know, as far as threats go on the Giants, I don't see it. I think they have plenty of threats. I know there's not like a solidified wide receiver 1, but between Isaiah Hodgins, between Wan'Dale Robinson, even Darren Waller in the mix, I don't think Daniel Jones and Brian Daboll are going to have a difficulty, you know, finding reliable weapons on this offense. So, you know, I get it. You're with Philadelphia, we're Dallas. You're in a difficult, you're in the NFC, which I guess is not as strong as the AFC, but you're in a difficult division in a difficult conference because of the National Football League. But my point is the Giants are just fine. And once again, the Giants weren't supposed to win 9 games last season, so keep expectations in check here. If I'm the New York Giants this upcoming year, what I'm trying to do is continue Daniel Jones being that dude. Is Daniel Jones the dude? Can he get us to the promised land? That's what I want to establish this upcoming season. Obviously, they paid him. They believe in that. So let's get back into the playoffs and let's see what happens there. That's my thoughts on what the Giants should be focused on this upcoming season. So that's it for today. Hit the like button, hit that sub button for daily NFL content. If you guys want more Giants videos, let me know down below. But as always, hit that like button, hit that sub button, and let me know what you guys are thinking about this Giants offense.